Hello and welcome to my channel. This is the Techish, and in this video we are going to be solving the elective ICT 2017 practical question number 1, which is an HTML question. But before we actually get started, I would appreciate if you could give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and the bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. So without any further delays, let's get started with this tutorial. Alright, we are back once again, and here is the question. 1a. With the help of an appropriate text editor, create the HTML code to produce the page below. So when we look at the page below, we have the customer name, which is a legend. Then we have two labels called first name and last name. And then we have two input boxes to receive information of our first name and last name respectively. Then on B, it says what? Set the title of the page to your full name and index number. The program code must be properly indented. So I'll talk about the indentation of your code. And then finally, save the file as form.html in the folder created. So let's first create a folder and then we create the HTML document, which is form.html. Let me just copy the name so that I'll just paste it. So first, you head to your desktop, right click on any blank space, a pop-up menu should appear, and scroll down to new and select folder. For the name of your folder, it's supposed to be your initials and index number. So if your name is Prince Danso, for example, your initials should be PD, but mine is the Techish, so I'm just going to type D and then give myself an index number of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then hit on enter to let those changes reflect. Now when we are done with that, the next thing we go back to the question, and it says what? With the help of an appropriate text editor. So in this video, the appropriate text editor I'll be using is Notepad++. For those of you who do not have it, I'll leave the download link in the description below. You can download it, install it, and follow along, and it's completely free. So now let's open up Notepad++. And one thing you'll notice is whenever you open Notepad++, it creates a new unsaved file. So in this case, you just need to click on Ctrl+Alt+S, or you can just go to File, click on Save As. It should open a dialog box for you. And for those of you who might not know where you are or where to find the file you just created, the folder you just created, just click on Desktop, and then you should see the folder I created. So in this case, D with my index number. Double click on it, and then you need to save it according to what the question said, form.html. So that is why I copied it. I'm just going to paste it, and then I'll click on save. Now let's verify whether everything has been done properly. So let's go back to the folder and let's check it out. So in the folder we can see form.html. We can see this logo here. So the way you know that everything has been done well is by seeing the logo of your default browser. For those of you using Microsoft Edge, you should see that icon here. But in my case, I'm using a different browser, and that is why the icon is different from yours. So let's just double click to open it on our browser. And when you open it, you can see that so far the title is called form.html and it is blank, nothing is there. So as we type the code, we will see some changes. Now the next thing we are going to do is we are going to now type some HTML code to display what we have over here. Let's head back to Notepad++, and let me close this. Alright, so now we type the code, but the first thing to do in typing the code is we need to specify the document type and the HTML version. So we need to tell the browser these things. The way you do this is you type in $! Exclamation doc type HTML. So what does this do? It tells the browser that the document type is HTML, and also the version of HTML we are using is the latest, which is HTML5. So doc stands for document. So in simple English, the document type is HTML. After we've done that, we need to now type in the root element for the HTML document. Just like building a house, you start with a foundation, then you build upon it. In the same way, for building the HTML document, we start with the root element, then we build upon it. So the root element, here's how you type it: HTML, then you add an attribute called lang, en for English, and then it also has a closing tag. So what is going on? Let me just explain it. First of all, it has an opening and a closing tag. So this is the opening tag and this is the closing tag. The closing tag has a forward slash. That is the difference. But one thing to know is that not all tags in HTML have closing tag, which you'll see in a moment. Also, what is this thing over here? This is an attribute, which is more or less like an additional information about the tag. So in this case, we are saying that this HTML document, we are trying to tell the browser that the content is going to be in English. So lang stands for language and en for English. So let's say that your native language was French, then yours would be FR. Or if it was Spanish, yours would be ES. But in our case, it's English, so EN. Next, the next thing we do is we create the head section as well as the body section. So the head section comes first, and that is where we store our title and other important information. So when you look at the question, it says what? Set the title of your web page to your full name and index number. So we need to create a title and we need a head section for that. So the head section, just like the HTML root element, also has an opening and a closing tag. And this is where indentation also comes in. So first let's type it, then I'll talk about indentation. So this is the opening and this is the closing. So you can see that before I typed it, I left some space for both. This is the indentation that the question was talking about. Basically, when to indent and when not to indent. Whenever you have an inner element, you have to indent it. So in this case, the head element is found inside the HTML root element. So we have to indent the head element. The same thing is going to happen for the title because the title element is going to find itself in the head element. So in this case, we are going to indent it again by pressing the tab key. So I use the tab key for the indentation, and we are going to type in the title element. So the title also has a closing tag. In between is where you type in the title. So according to the question, our full name and index number. So the Turkish is the full name, and then the index number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9. And this is it. So before we continue, let's save it and see the changes. Actually, let's not save it. I want to show you something. So let's check the changes. So you click on this icon to see the changes, or you can press F5. Now when you click it, you're not seeing anything. That's because we've not saved it. So the reason why I didn't save it is because some people might forget to do it and they might be confused as to what is going on. So one thing to know is that whenever you make a change in your HTML document, you have to make sure to save it so that the changes can be reflected. If you don't save it, you're not going to see it. So click on Ctrl+S to save, or you go to File and click on Save. Now let's check it again, and you can see that now it has reflected. So you can see our title is now appearing here, the Turkish, and then the index number. So we are one step forward. Now the next thing is to create a body. The body is where the visible content of our web page is displayed. So when we look at this web page over here, we can see that this whole space is white and blank. This is the body section. Because we've not created a body section, nothing is being displayed. So we need to create it, and then we'll be able to display this content we have over here. So let's head back and create a body section. So just like the other tags, the body also has an open and a closing tag. And also, since the body element finds itself in the HTML element, I also have to indent it. So that is also something to know. Now inside the body element is where we are going to now create what we have over here. So when you look at the question, you can see that this is basically a form. What is a form? A form is basically used to accept user input from the user. You know, people will be like, fill in this form, you know, with your particulars. So the first thing to do is to create a form using the form element. It also has an opening and a closing tag. And inside it, we need to create something we call a field set. So what is a field set? A field set is basically, you can think of it like a box that groups related elements together. So in this case, we are going to type in a lot of elements inside a form, and we need to group it together. So let me show you the field set in a question. Do you see that there's a border over here, and inside the border we have the labels and then the input boxes? That is a field set. It's grouping all the elements for the form together, you know, for organization purposes. So that's the reason why we need to create a field set. And since the field set is going to find itself in the form, we need to indent it as well by hitting the tab key. Then we type in field set. Also has an opening and a closing tag. Now inside the field set is where we are going to type in the labels and then the input boxes. But before that, we need to type in the customer name. So what is a customer name? The customer name is a legend, and a legend is basically, you can think of it like a title for the field set. So first of all, let's save and see what's going on. So let's save it, and we can see there's the border here. So the border we saw here has been displayed. That is a field set. If you don't believe me, let me just take this out and let's save it. You can see nothing appears. So it is not a form, it is a field set. Now let's just put it back there. So inside the field set, we need to give it a title. So we use the legend element, and then we type in what? Customer name. Then we also close it with a closing tag. Save it and see what happens. So now you can see that the customer name is here, and then the field set is also beside it. Inside the field set, we are going to put in those elements for the form. So let's progress with the first name, which is a label, and then the input. So what is a label? A label is basically used to describe the inputs that we are expecting. So in this case, we want the user to enter their first name, and we need to tell them what exactly to enter, and we use a label for that. So we have an element called label, and we are going to type in first name, and we are also going to close it. Save it and see how it looks. So you can see it's over here, first name label. And now we need to create the input box. So let's do that. So input box, you type in input, and then the next thing you do is you give it an attribute called type to specify the type of information we are expecting. The type is equal to text, because in this case we want names, and names are in text form, not in numbers or decimals or whatsoever. And then we close it. So this was what I was talking about earlier, that not all tags in HTML have closing tags, and input is one of them. And I'm also going to introduce another one when we are done with the labels, so just keep that in mind. Also, there are other attributes that accompany the input element, but for simplicity purpose, we are just going to make it like this. After all, this is more than enough. So let's save it and see the changes. Alright, so we can see the first name and then the input box. Now let's do the last name in the input box. So we can just copy this and paste it underneath it, and then we change the first to last and save it and see the changes. Alright, so now we can see that it's looking more like the question, but the problem is last name is supposed to be under first name, but they appear to be on the same line. So to fix this issue, we need to use another element called the BR element, and it's similar to the input in that it doesn't have a closing tag, but its purpose is to break the line or to move the next content to the next line. So in this case, we are going to put it in between the first label and its input, and then the last label and its input, since that is the point where we want to break the line. So we are going to type BR, and then we are going to save it. Now let's see the changes, and you can see that now it is looking more like what we wanted. But the problem is it's a little too close. When you look at the question, you can see that there is at least a little space between the first name and last name and the input boxes. So to fix that, you just need to add another BR, save it, and see what happens. So now it has created a spacing we're looking for, and it's looking much better now. You can also add another BR to create spacing between the last name and its input and then the border of the field set. So we can just copy this and paste it under the last label, save it, and let's see how it looks. Okay, it looks better. Also, I feel like the legend and then the first label, they are a little too close, so I can put one BR element in between them, BR. Let me save it and let's see. Yeah, so I think it looks better now. So let's look at the question again, and it seems that we've done everything. It looks just exactly. we've typed the HTML code to produce the page here. We've also set the title to our full name and index number, and we've also saved the program as form.html in the folder created. So let's verify that again. So when we look at the folder, you can see that it's already saved over here. So we are done, and this is the solution. Okay, but before we end this video, let me go through the code once again in case you didn't understand something. So let's start from line 1, which is doc type HTML, specifying the document type as HTML and also telling the browser that we are using the latest version, which is HTML5. Then we have the root element, which is the HTML element, and then the lang attribute, which specifies the language of the content of the page. Then inside it, we have the head element, which is used to store the title and other important information about our page. So in our title, we have our full name and index number. Then we have the body, which displays the visible contents of our page. Inside the body, we have the form, which is used to get input from the user. Then a field set used to group related elements together. So in this case, we want to group all the elements for the form together. And then we have the legend for the title of our field set, which is customer name. We use the BR tag to create a spacing between the legend and then the label to make our form look better. After that, the next thing we do is we created a label for the first name, and then we gave it an input element. So the first name is the label, telling the user that we are expecting them to enter their name inside the input box. And we noticed that the second label and the input were on the same line, so we added 2 of the BR elements to create spacing to solve that problem. Then we also created the last name label and then its input box to also get that information. Then we also decided to add another BR element to create spacing between the last name label, its input, and then the field set. And that is pretty much it. So if you guys enjoyed this video and found it useful, then please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button and the bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. See you guys in my next video, and bye for now.